En 1867, en Kansas, cuando el abogado Marcus Brennan vio a la niña orfana que nadie quería en el bloque de auciones, hizo una decisión impulsiva que pondría en marcha eventos mucho más grandes de los que ninguno podría imaginar. A medida que su bondad inesperada creció más fuerte, Marcus descubrió que Lily tenía un regalo extraordinario, con animales que pronto atraerían la atención de hombres poderosos, pero ¿serían sus nuevas familias frágiles que sobrevivirían las fuerzas determinadas para romperlos? Lo que Marcus no sabía era que salvar a un niño desesperado últimamente cambiaría el destino de toda la frontera americana. ¿Pero a qué costo? Un disparo se rompió por el aire duro de la ciudad de Dodge, Kansas, pero no estaba destinado a ningún hombre. Fue el señal de comienzo para la aución del abogado mensual de octubre de 1867. Los niños se alinearon como la carne en los pasos de la corte, sus faces pintadas con esperanza y miedo, como si los compradores potenciales se encirclaran por debajo. Marcus Brennan agarró su cabello bajo contra el viento de octubre, sus manos aterradoras agarrando las ruedas del vagón. Venía a la ciudad a buscar suministros y tal vez un niño fuerte para ayudar con el trabajo de la alcaldía. Lo que él no esperaba era sentir su corazón torcer en la vista de la pequeña chica al final de la línea. No podía haber sido más de 8 años con cabello de cobre que atrapó la luz del sol. Su pierna izquierda estaba apuntada a un ángulo extraño y ella se alineó fuertemente en un cruce de pasajeros. Mientras los otros niños estaban altos e intentaban verse útiles, parecía estar tratando de desaparecer hacia las sombras. «Miren a este fino espécimen», le llamó el comprador apuntando a un chico duro de 12 años. Corazón fuerte, brazos buenos, perfecto para el trabajo de la alcaldía. La petición era fuerte. Marcus observó mientras las familias examinaban a los niños, como si compraran perros revisando sus brazos, sintiendo sus músculos, discutiendo su valor potencial. Todo esto hizo que su estómago girara. Uno a uno los niños fueron vendidos. Los chicos fuertes fueron a los agricultores. Las chicas bonitas fueron a las familias necesitando ayuda de casa. Pero mientras la línea se acercaba, una niña quedó. Ahora, ¿qué debería hacer con esta? El comprador gritó sin interrumpir su voz. Ella ha dañado productos chicos. No puede hacer mucho trabajo con esa pierna. La cara de la chica se volvió roja con vergüenza. Ella agarró un pequeño dulce de plástico a su pecho. La única cosa en el mundo que le perteneció. Marcus sintió algo en su pecho. Él también había dañado productos una vez, después de que sus padres murieron y lo dejaron con relativos que lo vieron como una pesadilla. Él se acordó de lo que sentía ser desesperado de ser juzgado por lo que no podía hacer en lugar de lo que podía hacer. «Le diría que la tomaré», dijo él a sí mismo. Las palabras lo sorprendieron tanto como a todos los demás. El público se miró al solitario caballero que solo pidió a la chica que nadie quería. «¿Estás seguro de eso, Brennan?», llamó a Jim Crawford, un alcalde vecino. «No va a ser mucha ayuda alrededor de un alcalde». Marcus pasó adelante sus botas sonciando en la plataforma de madera. «Quizás no estoy buscando ayuda. Quizás estoy buscando algo más». El comprador gritó. «Tu dinero, tu elección. $50 y ella es tuya». $50 era mucho dinero. Suficiente para comprar 3 buenos perros o arreglar su terreno antes de invierno. Pero mientras Marcus miraba en los ojos blancos de la chica, sabía que estaba comprando algo más valioso que alimento o reparaciones. «¿Cuál es tu nombre, pequeño?», le preguntó lentamente. «Lily». Ella gritó, su voz bastante audible sobre el viento de la playa. «Lily, Mae Henderson». «Bueno, Lily Mae, soy Marcus Brennan. ¿Cómo te gustaría venir a casa conmigo?». Por primera vez desde que había estado mirándola algo brilló en sus ojos. No esperaba que eso tomara tiempo, pero un pequeño impacto de curiosidad. Quizás el extraño fuera diferente de todos los demás que habían mirado a ella y han ido. A medida que el dinero cambió de manos y los papeles fueron firmados, Marcus notó cómo atentamente Lily sostuvo su perla. El juguete estaba vestido y patinado, pero era claro que la amaba. Alguien la amaba una vez, lo suficientemente para darle algo para sostenerse cuando todo lo demás se fue. Los otros niños ya habían sido cargados en vagones y llevados a sus nuevas casas. Los pasos de la corte estaban vacíos ahora, a excepción de Marcus y Lily. El sol de otoño estaba cayendo pintando el cielo en sombras de orange y azul. «¿Puedes llegar a la vaga, Marcus?», preguntó, notando cómo le favoreció su buena perla. Lily gritó. y comenzó la lenta y dolorosa jornada por la callada calle. Marcus quería ayudarla, pero algo le dijo que debía hacer esto a sí misma. Tenía su orgullo incluso si era todo lo que tenía. Cuando llegaron a la vaga, Marcus lo levantó lentamente en el asiento adjunto a él. Ella pesaba casi nada, y podía sentir lo fina que estaba debajo de su ropa. ¿Cuándo fue la última vez que tuvo una comida adecuada? Al salir de Dodge City, Lily miró de vuelta a la ciudad creciendo más pequeña detrás de ellos. ¿Estás realmente llevándome a casa?, ella preguntó. Lo estoy, Marcus respondió. A la rancha Flying Bee. Estamos a unos 20 millas del norte de aquí. Deberé trabajar muy duro, intento mi mejor. Pero mi pie... Lily May. Marcus dijo, su voz firme pero amable. No tienes que ganar tu lugar en mi rancha. No estás ahí para trabajar hasta la muerte. Estás ahí porque mereces un hogar. Ella miró a él con sorpresa, como si había hablado en un idioma extranjero. Nadie me había dicho eso antes. La playa se estiraba infinitamente alrededor de ellos, el graso dorado se movía en el viento como un océano de hueso. Los pájaros circulaban por delante y en la distancia una pequeña flota de antelopes gravaban pacíficamente. Era una tierra difícil, pero también era hermosa. El tipo de lugar donde una persona podría empezar. Señor Brennan, la voz de Lily era pequeña en la amplitud del paisaje. Solo Marcus estaba bien. Marcus, ¿por qué me escogiste? No puedo hacer mucho trabajo. No soy tan bonita como las otras chicas. Ni siquiera puedo caminar bien. Marcus estuvo silencioso por un momento largo, escogiendo sus palabras con atención. A veces Lily May no escogemos a la gente porque de lo que pueden hacer por nosotros. A veces los escogemos porque de lo que podemos hacer por ellos. Y a veces, si somos afortunados, descubrimos que pueden hacer más por nosotros que imaginábamos. Mientras el vagón caminaba a través de la oscuridad, ni Marcus ni Lily pudieron imaginar que este simple acto de amabilidad podría poner en marcha eventos que cambiarían no solo sus vidas, sino todo el territorio alrededor de ellos. La montaña de flores apareció en el horizonte como una mirada, sus edificios oscuros contra el cielo lleno de estrellas. Lily había dormido durante el largo viaje, su cabeza descansando contra la espalda de Marcus. Su dobladera se cerró a salvo en sus brazos. La confianza que mostró en ese simple gesto lo movió más que lo esperaba. «Nosotros estamos en casa, Marcus», dijo suavemente. Suavemente lo levantó. Los ojos de Lily se abrieron lentamente, tomando en las iluminaciones oscuras de la casa, la montaña y las corrales. Incluso en la oscuridad, ella podía sentir la grandeza del lugar. «¡Es tan grande!», ella gritó. Marcus sonrió. «Espera hasta que lo veas en la luz del día. Se verá aún más grande entonces». Él la ayudó a bajar del vagón, notando cómo se mojó cuando su pierna maldita tocó el suelo. Mañana tendría que encontrar cómo hacer las cosas más fáciles para que ella se mueva. Quizás construir algunas escaleras o encontrarle una mejor montaña. La casa era simple pero sólida. 2 asientos de madera con una ventana de frontera amplia. Marcus se había construido él mismo después del guerro. Cada pared y cuchillo lo colocó con sus propias manos. Había sido un lugar solitario durante los últimos 5 años, pero de alguna manera la presencia de Lily lo hizo sentir diferente ya. «¿Estás hambriento?», Marcus preguntó, mientras iluminaba la lámpara de aceite en la cocina. Lily sonrió sinvergüenzamente. Siempre estaba hambrienta, pero había aprendido a no pedir comida. En el orfanato, pedir por segundos generalmente significaba no conseguir nada. Marcus rompió sus suministros y juntó un plato simple, frijoles, pan de maíz y una cucharada de leche fresca de su gato. Para Lily parecía una fiesta. Comió lentamente, tratando de hacer que termine saboreando cada pedazo. «¿Dónde dormiré?», preguntó cuando terminara. Marcus había estado preguntando lo mismo. El hogar tenía 3 habitaciones, su propia, una habitación de guestos y una pequeña habitación que había usado para almacenamiento. «¿Qué tal que arreglamos la habitación por arriba? Tiene una hermosa ventana que se ve por la pastilla». Juntos subieron el cerrado escalón. La habitación era sucia y llena de bolsas, pero tenía buena luz desde la ventana y suficiente espacio para una cama y un vestidor. Marcus movió las bolsas mientras Lily observaba su perla todavía en sus brazos. «¿Cuál es su nombre?», preguntó Marcus sonriendo hacia la perla. Rosie respondió. «Lily. Mi mamá la hizo para mí antes de que se enfermara». Fue la primera vez que mencionó a su madre y Marcus no empujó por más. Habría tiempo para historias después cuando ella estuviera lista. ¿Qué pasa, Rosie? Encontró unas bolsas limpias y construyó una cama para ella. No era linda, pero era limpia y cálida. Lily se sentó en el borde de la matriz, saltando un poco para probarla. «Es suave», dijo con sorpresa. «No he dormido en una cama real en mucho tiempo». Marcus sintió el dolor de corazón. ¿Qué tipo de vida había vivido este niño? «Bueno, este es tu cama ahora por lo largo que quieras». Después de que Lily se sentara por la noche, Marcus se sentó en su bolsa y miró por su tierra. La noche era clara y fría con 1.000.000 de estrellas escondidas por el cielo negro. Siempre había encontrado paz en la grandeza de la mazmorra, pero esta noche su mente estaba llena de preguntas. ¿En qué se había metido? No sabía nada acerca de criar a un niño, especialmente a una chica. Había sido un soldado, un caballero, un abogado. Todo el trabajo de un hombre en el mundo de un hombre. ¿Cómo se suponía que tenía que cuidar a alguien tan pequeño y frágil? Pero luego se acordó de la luz en los ojos de Lily cuando se dio cuenta de que tenía su propia habitación, su propia cama. Quizás no tenía que tener todas las respuestas. Quizás solo tenía que cuidarse y encontrar el resto mientras se fue. La próxima mañana Marcus se despertó al olor de café y arroz. Se acercó a la pared para encontrar a Lily estando en el forno usando una espátula de madera para voltear el arroz en la panela. Había encontrado su abuelo y lo llevé alrededor de su pecho, aunque era tan grande que casi lo agarró a la pared. «Mañana», dijo Lily no mirando a su cocina. «Espero que no te preocupes». «Quisiera ayudar, Marcus». Miró a ella en asombro. «¿Cómo llegaste al forno?» Lily apuntó a una caja de madera que había agarrado de la esquina. «Estoy buena en encontrar cosas». El arroz estaba perfectamente cocido, y ella había conseguido hacer bizcotas que eran suaves y suaves. Marcus no se acordó de la última vez que había tenido tan buen desayuno. «¿Dónde aprendiste a cocinar así?», le preguntó. «En el orfanato hicieron el trabajo de los niños más antiguos en la cocina. No podía hacer levantamiento pesado, pero podía cocinar y limpiar». Después del desayuno, Marcus le dio a Lily un tour del rancho. Se movió lentamente debido a su piel, pero sus ojos estaban brillantes con interés cuando le mostró el jardín, los corrales y la pastilla en la que pesaba. «Tienes tantos animales», dijo ella mirando a un grupo de perros cerca del piso. 23 perros, 42 caballos y más galletas que puedo contar. Marcus respondió. Además, una gran perra llamada Berta. Lily se mojó la primera vez que escuchó su risa. El sonido era como música. Se detuvieron en el corral del perro donde un hermoso negro pesaba pacíficamente. El perro miró a su aproximación. Sus ojos se movían con curiosidad. «Eso es Midnight», dijo Marcus. «Es la perra más amigable que he tenido». A su sorpresa, Lily se acercó más cerca del piso. «Hola, Midnight», dijo suavemente. «Eres hermosa». Midnight caminó hacia el piso extendiéndose su cuello para mojar la mano de Lily. El comportamiento era inusual, normalmente un poco extraña alrededor de extranjeros. «¿Te gusta?», observó Marcus. «Yo la amo también», respondió Lily. Ella se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola, Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola, Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola, Midnight se acercó. Hola, Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola, Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola, Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Se acercó. Hola, Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola, Midnight. Hola, Midnight más cerca del piso. Hola, Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Se acercó más cerca del piso. Se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola, Midnight se acercó. Hola, Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola, Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola, Midnight más cerca del piso. Hola, Midnight se acercó. Hola, Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola, Midnight se acercó, se acercó. Hola, Midnight se acercó. Hola, Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola, Midnight se acercó, se acercó. Hola, Midnight se acercó. Hola, Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola, Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola, Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola, Midnight. Hola, Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola, Midnight. Hola, Midnight más cerca del piso. Hola, Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola, Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola, Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola, Midnight se acercó. Hola, Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola Midnight se acercó. Se acercó. Hola Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. 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 Se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola Midnight se acercó. Hola Midnight se acercó. Hola Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. 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 Hola Midnight. Hola Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Se acercó más cerca del piso. Más cerca del piso. Hola Midnight. Hola Midnight más cerca del piso. Se acercó. Se acercó. Hola Midnight. Se acercó. Hola Midnight. Se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola Midnight se acercó. Se acercó. Hola Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola Midnight se acercó. Hola Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Hola Midnight. Hola Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. 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 Más cerca del piso. Hola Midnight se acercó más cerca del piso. Se acercó más cerca del piso. De orgullo por su valentía. Esta chica que había sido demasiado asustada de hablar sobre un grito hace pocas semanas, ahora estaba levantándose ante algunos de los hombres más poderosos de la ciudad. Porque no es así como el mundo funciona, dijo firmemente Morrison. Hay lugares adecuados para todos. Los hombres hacen el trabajo de los hombres, las mujeres hacen el trabajo de las mujeres y los niños obedecen a sus antepasados. Incluso si sus antepasados están mal, Lily disparó de vuelta. La pregunta se sentó en el aire como un desafío. Estos hombres se acostumbraron a tener su palabra aceptada sin pregunta, especialmente por los niños. Pero Lily no se bajaba. Ahora mira aquí, joven señora. Empezó Hayes, su voz tomando un tono asustador. Eso es suficiente, interrumpió Marcus, pasándose protectivamente frente a Lily. Has dicho tu paz. Ahora diré mi. Este es mi tierra, mi casa y mi familia. Lily permanece aquí por tanto tiempo como quiera. Si no te gusta puedes acudir a las autoridades territoriales. Tal vez lo haremos, dijo Hayes calmamente. Tal vez es hora de que alguien mire esta situación con más atención. Mientras los hombres corrieron, Marcus sintió un descanso que no tenía nada que ver con el viento de otoño. Habría hecho enemigos hoy, enemigos poderosos que podrían causarle un gran problema a él y a Lily. ¿He dicho demasiado?, preguntó Lily mirando preocupada. Has dicho exactamente lo que debía de ser dicho, respondió Marcus. Estoy orgulloso de ti por levantarte por ti mismo. Pero incluso mientras hablaba las palabras Marcus, no podía moverse de la sensación de que esto era solo el comienzo. Los hombres que había visitado hoy no eran el tipo para desistir fácilmente. Estarían de vuelta y la próxima vez podrían traer más que solo palabras malas. Esa noche, mientras Lily trabajaba con Thunder en el corral, Marcus observó desde la pared y preguntó lo que la futura tenía. Su simple acto de amabilidad en adoptar a un niño desesperado había de alguna manera convertido en una amenaza a la orden establecida. La gente preguntaba no solo sobre su salud como guardián, sino sobre la idea de que alguien como Lily pudiera elegir su propio camino en la vida. Los riesgos eran más altos de lo que él había dado cuenta y la batalla por la futura de Lily era solo el comienzo. Thunder se había ido. Marcus descubrió el vacío corral justo después de la medianoche, la puerta abierta como una acusación en la luz del mañana. Alguien había desesperadamente dejado el corral libre durante la noche y Marcus tenía una sensación sincronizada de que sabía por qué. Lily le llamó corriendo hacia la casa. «Quédate adentro». Pero ella ya estaba en el corral, su cara oscura con comprensión. Los llevaron. No lo hicieron porque de lo que sucedió ayer. Marcus gritó sincronizadamente. Thunder no era solo cualquier perro. Él valía más que la mayoría de las personas que se hicieron en un año. Pero más que eso, él fue Lily's first real success. Proof that her gift with animals was real and valuable. Whoever had released him was sending a clear message. We have to find him, Lily said, reaching for her crutch. He doesn't know this area. He could get lost or hurt himself. It's too dangerous, Marcus replied. Thunder spooked and running free. Even with your gift, he might not listen when he's scared and confused. But Lily was already limping toward the barn. He'll listen to me. I know he will. Marcus caught up with her and gently took her arm. Lily May, I can't let you go after him. If something happened to you, and I can't let him stay lost, she said firmly. He trusts me, Marcus. I'm probably the only person in the world he trusts. If we don't find him soon, he'll either get shot by some scared farmer or run so far we'll never see him again. The determination in her voice reminded Marcus of himself at that age. Stubborn, brave, and unwilling to abandon something he cared about. He knew she was right about Thunder, but the thought of taking her into potential danger made his stomach churn. Then we do this smart, he said finally. We track him together, but you stay back when we find him. Let me approach first to make sure it's safe. They saddled Midnight, the gentle black mare that Lily had befriended on her first day. Marcus helped Lily up behind him and they set out following Thunder's hoofprints in the soft earth. The trail led north toward the Badlands where the ground was rocky and dangerous. Marcus could see why someone might drive Thunder in this direction. It was easy to get lost among the canyons and mesas, and a horse could injure himself on the sharp stones. There Lily pointed toward a distant ridge. I can see him. Thunder stood on a narrow ledge halfway up a steep cliff face, his black coat gleaming in the morning sun. He was trapped. The ledge was too narrow to turn around, and the drop below was 50 feet of jagged rocks. How did he get up there? Marcus wondered aloud. Someone chased him, Lily said, her voice tight with anger. Look at the ground. Those are rope marks, and there are 2 sets of horse tracks leading away from here. Marcus studied the evidence and felt his own anger rising. This wasn't just a prank or a warning. It was a deliberate attempt to get Thunder killed. The men who'd done this had chased the stallion up onto that ledge, knowing he'd be trapped. Can we get him down? Lily asked. Marcus studied the cliff face. There was a narrow path that might work, but it would be treacherous. One wrong step and both horse and rider would fall to their deaths. I can try, he said, but I'll have to go up alone. No, Lily said firmly. He won't come to you. He's scared and confused. He needs to hear my voice. Absolutely not. That path is barely wide enough for a horse. If you fell, then don't let me fall, Lily said simply. You said we were a team. Teams stick together. Marcus looked at her determined face and realized she wasn't going to be talked out of this. Lily had found something she was good at, something that made her valuable, and she wasn't going to let fear take it away from her. All right, he said finally, but we do this my way. I go first. You follow exactly in my footsteps, and if I say stop, you stop immediately. The climb was the most terrifying thing Marcus had ever done. The path was crumbling sandstone that shifted under their feet, and the drop below seemed to grow deeper with every step. Behind him, Lily moved slowly but steadily, her bad leg making the journey even more dangerous. Thunder, she called softly when they were halfway up. It's me, boy. I'm coming to get you. The stallion's ears pricked forward at the sound of her voice. He whinnied nervously, but didn't try to move on the narrow ledge. That's right, Lily continued. Just stay calm. We're going to get you out of this mess. When they finally reached the ledge, Marcus could see the terror in Thunder's eyes. The proud stallion was shaking with fear. His nostrils flared wide as he stared at the drop below. Easy, boy, Lily whispered slowly, extending her hand. I know you're scared, but you have to trust me now. For a moment, Marcus thought Thunder might panic and jump. The horse's muscles were bunched with tension, and his eyes showed too much white. But then Lily began to hum a soft, wordless melody that seemed to reach something deep inside the frightened animal. Thunder's ears swiveled toward her, and gradually his trembling subsided. Step by careful step, Lily coaxed him toward the path that led down from the ledge. The descent was even more dangerous than the climb up. Thunder's hooves sent loose rocks clattering down the cliff face, and twice Marcus had to grab Lily's arm to keep her from falling. But somehow, miraculously, they all made it safely to the bottom. Who would do such a thing, Lily asked, as they led Thunder away from the cliffs? Who would try to kill an innocent animal just to hurt us? Marcus didn't answer, but he had his suspicions. The same men who'd visited yesterday, who'd been so concerned about propriety and proper places, They'd found a way to strike back without directly confronting him. As they rode home, thunder following peacefully behind them, Marcus realized that this attack had changed something fundamental. What had started as concerns about an unusual living arrangement had escalated into something much more dangerous. These men weren't just questioning his fitness as a guardian. They were willing to destroy property and endanger lives to make their point. Marcus Lily said quietly, "Are they going to keep trying to hurt us?" "I don't know," he admitted, "but I do know this. What we have is worth fighting for. You've got a gift, Lily May, something special that could help a lot of people and animals. I won't let anyone take that away from you." But even as he spoke the words, Marcus wondered if his determination would be enough. The men they were up against had money, influence, and the backing of social convention. All he had was love for a little girl and belief in her extraordinary abilities. As the ranch came into view, Marcus made a silent promise. Whatever came next, he would protect Lily and her gift, even if it meant standing against the entire territory. The war for Lily's future had begun, and Marcus intended to win it. The official letter arrived with the territorial marshal, its red wax seal catching the morning sunlight like a drop of blood on white paper. Marcus's hands trembled slightly as he broke the seal and read the words that could destroy everything he and Lily had built together. "What does it say?" Lily asked from the porch steps, her voice tight with worry. Marcus folded the letter carefully, his mind racing. "The territorial government is sending an investigator. Someone filed a formal complaint about our living situation." The marshal, a thin man named Deputy Carson, shifted uncomfortably in his saddle. "I'm sorry, Marcus. I know you're good people, but the law is the law. This investigator lady is coming from Topeka, and she's got the authority to remove the girl if she sees fit." After the marshal rode away, Marcus sat heavily beside Lily on the porch steps. The letter had given them 2 weeks to prepare for the investigation. 2 weeks to prove that their unconventional family was worthy of staying together. "They want to take me away, don't they?" Lily asked quietly. "They want to try," Marcus replied. "But wanting and doing are two different things." That afternoon, Marcus hitched up the wagon for a trip to town. If he was going to fight this battle, he needed allies, and he knew exactly where to find them. His first stop was the general store where Sarah Mitchell had been watching the growing conflict with interest. Sarah was a widow who'd raised 3 children on her own after her husband died in a mining accident. If anyone understood what it meant to defy society's expectations, it was her. "I heard about the investigation," Sarah said as Marcus entered her store. "Bunch of nonsense if you ask me. That little girl is better cared for than half the children in this county." "Would you be willing to say that to the investigator?" Marcus asked. "I'd be honored to," Sarah replied firmly. "Lily's got more courage and kindness in her little finger than those stuffed shirts have in their whole bodies." Next, Marcus visited Dr. Henley, the town's only physician. The elderly doctor had examined Lily's leg just the week before and had been impressed by how well she was managing her disability. "The child is thriving," Dr. Henley said without hesitation. "Her physical health is excellent, her spirits are high, and she's clearly receiving proper care and attention. I'll gladly provide a written statement to that effect." But Marcus's most important stop was at the church where Reverend Johnson was preparing his Sunday sermon. The Reverend was a practical man who believed in judging people by their actions rather than their circumstances. Marcus the Reverend said, looking up from his Bible, "I've been expecting you, then you know why I'm here. I do, and I want you to know that you have my full support. What you've done for that child is a true act of Christian charity. The fact that some people want to punish you for it says more about them than it does about you." With each ally he gained, Marcus felt a little more hopeful. But he knew that testimonials from townspeople might not be enough. The investigator would be looking for more than just character witnesses. She'd want proof that Lily was receiving proper care and education. That evening, Marcus found Lily in the barn, gently brushing Thunder's coat. The stallion stood perfectly still for her, a stark contrast to his behavior with anyone else. "Lily," Marcus said, "I need to ask you something important. When this investigator comes, she's going to ask you questions about living here with me. She might try to trick you or confuse you. Are you ready for that?" Lily looked up from her brushing. "What kind of questions?" "She might ask if you're happy, if you feel safe, if you're learning the things a young lady should know. She might ask if I've ever been inappropriate with you or made you uncomfortable." Lily's eyes flashed with anger. "That's disgusting. You're the kindest, most decent man I've ever known. Anyone who suggests otherwise doesn't know you at all. I know that, and you know that. But this investigator doesn't know us. She's going to make her decision based on what she sees and hears during her visit. Then we'll make sure she sees the truth," Lily said with determination. "We'll show her that families don't have to look the same to be real." Over the next few days, Marcus and Lily worked together to prepare for the investigation. They organized Lily's schoolwork to show her educational progress, gathered medical records to document her care, and even practiced answering the types of questions the investigator might ask. But their most powerful preparation was simply continuing to live their lives. Every morning, Lily helped with breakfast and household chores. Every afternoon, she worked with the horses, demonstrating the remarkable gift that had first brought them to the attention of their enemies. Every evening, they sat together on the porch, talking about the day's events and planning for the future. 1 week before the investigators' arrival, an unexpected visitor appeared at the ranch. Dr. Elizabeth Warren was a veterinarian from Kansas City, one of the few women in her profession. She'd heard about Lily's abilities with horses and had come to see for herself. "Show me." Dr. Warren said simply, after introducing herself. Lily led her to the corral where Thunder was grazing. The stallion immediately approached the fence when he saw her, his dangerous reputation forgotten in her presence. "Remarkable," Dr. Warren murmured, as she watched Lily communicate with the horse through gentle touches and soft words. "I've never seen anything like it. This child has an intuitive understanding of animal behavior that goes far beyond training or technique." "You think it's real?" Marcus asked. "I think it's extraordinary," Dr. Warren replied, "and I think anyone who would try to separate this child from the environment where she's discovered and developed this gift would be making a terrible mistake." Dr. Warren's visit gave Marcus an idea. If the territorial government wanted to judge their situation, why not demonstrate exactly what Lily could accomplish? The next day, he sent word to every rancher, farmer, and horse owner in the county. Anyone with a difficult animal was welcome to bring it to the Flying Bee Ranch for Lily to evaluate. The response was overwhelming. By the end of the week, a steady stream of visitors had arrived, with horses that wouldn't take riders' cattle, that wouldn't stay in pastures, and even a few dogs with behavioral problems. In every case, Lily was able to help using her gift to calm frightened animals and build trust between creatures and their owners. Word of these successes spread quickly, and soon people were coming from as far away as Wichita to seek Lily's help. Marcus began charging modest fees for her services, not because they needed the money, but because he wanted to establish that Lily's gift had real economic value. "You're building quite a reputation," he told her one evening as they watched the sunset paint the prairie in shades of gold and crimson. "We're building it together," Lily corrected. "I couldn't do any of this without you believing in me." As the day of the investigation drew closer, Marcus felt more confident than he had since receiving the letter. They had witnesses to Lily's character documentation of her care and education, and proof that her unique abilities were not only real, but valuable to the community. But most importantly, they had each other. Whatever the investigator decided, whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as a family, unconventional perhaps, but undeniably real and strong. The battle for their future was about to begin, and Marcus was ready to fight for everything that mattered. Victoria Hartwell stepped down from the stagecoach, like a general surveying a battlefield, her traveling dress immaculate despite the dusty journey from Topeka. She was younger than Marcus had expected, perhaps 35, with sharp green eyes that seemed to catalogue every detail of Dodge City's main street. Marcus waited at the hotel, his hat in his hands, as she approached. "Miss Hartwell, I'm Marcus Brennan." "Mrs. Hartwell," she corrected coolly. "I'm a widow, Mr. Brennan, which gives me some understanding of unconventional family situations. But don't mistake that for bias in your favor." The ride to the ranch was conducted in relative silence, with Victoria taking notes in a small leather journal. She observed the condition of Marcus's wagon, the health of his horses, even the way he spoke to other travelers they passed on the road. "Tell me about your decision to adopt Lily," Victoria said suddenly. Marcus chose his words carefully. "I saw a child who needed a home, and I had a home that needed completion. It seemed like a good match." "That's rather simplistic, don't you think? A child isn't a piece of furniture to complete a room's decoration." "No," Marcus agreed. "She's much more important than that. She's family." When they arrived at the ranch, Lily was waiting on the porch, dressed in her best dress with her hair neatly braided. Victoria studied her with professional interest, noting the child's posture, her expression, the way she held herself. "Good afternoon, Lily," Victoria said formally. "I'm Mrs. Hartwell. I'm here to learn about your life with Mr. Ben Bleh. Hello, ma'am, Lily replied politely. Would you like to see my room? Marcus made it special just for me. The tour of the house was thorough and methodical. Victoria examined Lily's bedroom, checking the quality of her clothing, the cleanliness of her living space, even the selection of books on her shelf. She asked pointed questions about daily routines, educational activities, and social interactions. Do you attend church regularly? Victoria asked. Every Sunday, Lily replied. Reverend Johnson says I have a good singing voice. And what about friends your own age? Do you spend time with other children? Lily hesitated slightly. Not very much. The town children, they sometimes stare at my leg. But I have friends here on the ranch. Animal friends don't count as proper social development, Victoria said, making a note. Why not? Lily asked, surprising the investigator with her directness. Animals are honest. They don't pretend to like you when they don't, and they don't judge you for things you can't help. Victoria's pen paused over her journal. That's an interesting perspective for someone so young. The afternoon continued with more questions, more observations, more notes in Victoria's ever-present journal. She watched Lily help with dinner preparation, observed her interactions with Marcus, even timed how long it took her to complete simple tasks with her disability. Now, Victoria said as they finished eating, I'd like to speak with Lily privately. Marcus felt his stomach tighten, but he nodded and stepped outside. Through the window he could see Victoria leaning forward intently as she questioned Lily about her feelings, her experiences, her hopes for the future. The private interview lasted nearly an hour. When Victoria finally emerged, her expression was unreadable. Tomorrow, I'll be conducting interviews with community members, she announced. I'll also want to observe Lily's daily routines more extensively. That night, after Victoria had retired to the guest room, Marcus found Lily sitting on the porch steps, staring up at the stars. How do you think it went? He asked. She's not mean, Lily said thoughtfully, but she's not warm either. She keeps asking the same questions in different ways, like she's trying to catch me in a lie. What kind of questions? Whether you've ever hurt me, whether I feel safe, whether I wish I lived somewhere else. And she keeps asking about my leg, whether you get impatient with me, whether I feel like a burden. Marcus felt a surge of anger. The suggestion that he would mistreat Lily because of her disability was insulting and hurtful. What did you tell her? The truth that you're the first person who ever made me feel like I was worth something just as I am, that you've never once made me feel ashamed of my leg, or sorry that you brought me home. The next morning brought a parade of visitors as Victoria conducted her community interviews. Reverend Johnson spoke eloquently about Marcus's character and Lily's positive influence on the congregation. Dr. Henley provided detailed medical records showing Lily's excellent health and proper care. Sarah Mitchell was particularly effective, describing how she'd watched Lily grow from a frightened, withdrawn child into a confident young girl with a rare gift. That man saved her life, Sarah told Victoria firmly, not just by giving her food and shelter, but by showing her that she had value and potential. Anyone who can't see that is blind. But Victoria's most revealing interview was with Pete Richardson, the old horse trainer who'd witnessed Lily's work with Thunder. I've been training horses for 40 years, Pete said, and I've never seen anything like what that little girl can do. She's got a gift, a real one. The territorial government would be making a huge mistake if they broke up that family. Victoria's final test came that afternoon when she asked to observe Lily working with the animals. A rancher from a neighboring county had brought a horse that had been traumatized by a lightning strike and wouldn't allow anyone to approach. If your methods are so effective, Victoria said to Lily, surely you can help this animal. Lily looked at the terrified horse, then at Victoria. Animals aren't performances, Mrs. Hartwell. They're living creatures with feelings and fears. I can try to help, but I can't guarantee results just to impress you. The honesty of her response seemed to surprise Victoria. Proceed as you see fit. What followed was a masterclass in patience and empathy. Lily approached the frightened horse slowly, speaking in soft tones, never forcing interaction. Took nearly 2 hours, but gradually the animal began to trust her. By the end of the session, the horse was allowing Lily to touch his neck and even accepting a halter. Remarkable, Victoria murmured, making extensive notes. How did you know what to do? I just imagined how I would feel if I was scared and hurt and nobody understood me, Lily replied simply. Then I tried to be the kind of person I would want to meet. That evening, Victoria requested a final private meeting with Marcus. They sat in the parlor while Lily worked on her schoolwork at the kitchen table. Mr. Brennan, Victoria began. I want you to know that this has been one of the most unusual investigations I've ever conducted. Marcus's heart sank. Unusual probably wasn't good. The child is clearly thriving, Victoria continued. Her health is excellent, her education is progressing well, and she demonstrates remarkable emotional maturity for her age. More importantly, she shows no signs of distress or inappropriate treatment. But Marcus prompted hearing the reservation in her voice. But the situation remains highly unconventional. There are legitimate concerns about propriety, about what will happen as Lily grows older, about the lack of female guidance in her upbringing. Victoria paused, studying her notes one final time. However, I've also observed something extraordinary here. This child has discovered and developed a remarkable gift under your care. Her work with animals isn't just impressive, it's potentially revolutionary. To separate her from the environment where she's discovered this ability would be inadvisable. Marcus held his breath, afraid to hope. My recommendation will be that the guardianship be allowed to continue, Victoria said finally, with certain conditions to address the community's concerns. Relief flooded through Marcus like a river breaking through a dam. What conditions you'll need to employ a female housekeeper to live on the premises. Regular inspections will be conducted to ensure continued compliance with territorial standards, and when Lily reaches adolescence, her situation will need to be re-evaluated. They were staying together. Whatever compromises were necessary, whatever hoops they'd have to jump through, they were staying together. Thank you, Marcus, said his voice thick with emotion. Don't thank me yet, Victoria replied. Thank me when Lily's gift has changed the way people think about animals' communication and the potential of those society considers different. I have a feeling that day isn't far away. As Victoria prepared to leave the next morning, she pulled Lily aside for a final conversation. You have something special, child, she said. Don't let anyone convince you to hide it or diminish it to make others comfortable. The world needs people who can build bridges between different kinds of understanding. Standing on the porch, watching Victoria's stagecoach disappear into the distance, Marcus felt a profound sense of gratitude. They had survived their first real challenge as a family, but more than that, they had proven that love and dedication could overcome society's narrow definitions of what a family should look like. The future stretched ahead of them, full of possibilities they were only beginning to imagine. The telegram arrived at dawn, its urgent message crackling through the morning air like lightning. Wild Mustang herd, destroying crop, stop. Governor, ordering mass shooting, stop. Need Lily's help, immediately, stop. Come to Red Rock Canyon, stop. Marcus read it twice, his coffee growing cold as the implication sank in. What's wrong? Lily asked, noticing his grim expression as she limped into the kitchen. There's a herd of wild Mustangs causing trouble up north. The territorial governor wants them all shot, but some folks think you might be able to help instead. Lily's eyes widened. Shot all of them. Every last one, unless someone can find another solution. The telegram's from Colonel Bradley at Fort Hayes. He's heard about your work with horses. Within an hour they were loading supplies into the wagon. The journey to Red Rock Canyon would take 2 days of hard travel, but Marcus could see the determination in Lily's face. This wasn't just about helping animals anymore, it was about proving that her gift could solve problems that violence couldn't. The first day's travel took them through familiar prairie, but as they moved north, the landscape grew wilder and more rugged. Red sandstone cliffs rose from the earth like ancient monuments, and the air carried the scent of sage and wild grass. They camped that night beside a small creek, the stars brilliant overhead. Lily sat close to the fire, her face thoughtful in the flickering light. Marcus, she said quietly, what if I can't help them? What if the Mustangs are too wild, too scared to trust anyone? Then we'll have tried, Marcus replied. Sometimes trying is all we can do, but if I fail, they'll die. All of them. Marcus moved closer, putting a gentle arm around her shoulders. Lily. May, you've never failed with an animal yet, but even if you did, their deaths wouldn't be your fault. The blame belongs to the people who chose violence over understanding. The next morning brought them to Red Rock Canyon, where a temporary camp had been established. Soldiers, ranchers, and government officials milled about, all waiting for the order to begin the slaughter. The atmosphere was tense, with men checking rifles and discussing the best positions for the shooting. Colonel Bradley was a stern man with grey whiskers and tired eyes. He greeted Marcus and Lily with obvious skepticism. You're the girl everyone's talking about, he asked, looking Lily up and down. Seems awfully young to be solving problems that have stumped grown men. Age doesn't matter when it comes to understanding, Lily replied calmly. Animals don't care how old you are. They care whether you're kind. The colonel led them to a high ridge overlooking the canyon. Below, Marcus could see why the mustangs were causing such concern. The herd was massive. At least 200 horses spread across the canyon floor. They had broken through several ranchers' fences and trampled crops worth thousands of dollars. Their leader was a magnificent white stallion, who stood apart from the others, his head high and alert. They showed up 3 weeks ago, Colonel Bradley explained, driven down from the mountains by forest fires. They're eating everything in sight and won't be driven off. Local ranchers are losing their livelihoods. Have you tried to understand why they won't leave? Lily asked. The colonel looked puzzled. They're horses, girl. They don't have reasons beyond food and water. Lily studied the herd below, noting how they moved where they grazed, how they positioned themselves in relation to the canyon walls. Something about their behavior struck her as odd. They're not just eating, she observed. Look how they stay close to the north wall and see how the maras keep their foals near that cluster of rocks. They're protecting something. Protecting what? Marcus asked. I don't know yet, but I need to get closer to find out. The descent into the canyon was treacherous with loose rocks and steep drops threatening every step. Lily moved slowly, her bad leg making the journey even more difficult, but she refused Marcus's offers to turn back. As they reached the canyon floor, the white stallion immediately noticed their presence. He let out a shrill whinny that brought every horse in the herd to attention. 200 pairs of eyes focused on the small girl and the man approaching their domain. Easy, Lily whispered, not just to the horses, but to Marcus as well. We're not here to hurt anyone. The stallion approached them with his neck arched and his nostrils flaring. He was magnificent easily, 17 hands high with a flowing mane and intelligent dark eyes. But Marcus could see the wariness in his posture, the readiness to defend his herd at any cost. Lily stopped about 50 feet away and slowly sat down on a boulder, making herself appear smaller and less threatening. The stallion stopped too, studying the strange human who didn't behave like the others who had invaded his territory. Hello, beautiful, Lily said softly. You're the leader here, aren't you? You're trying to keep your family safe. The stallion's ears twitched forward at the sound of her voice. Gradually, other horses began to move closer, drawn by curiosity, and perhaps sensing that this human was different from the ones who had been shouting and waving weapons at them. As the horses gathered around them, Lily began to notice something unusual. Many of the maras had fresh cuts and burns on their legs and flanks. The foals stayed close to their mothers, some limping slightly. These weren't just horses seeking better grazing. They were refugees fleeing disaster. They're hurt, Lily said to Marcus. Look at their legs, their sides. Those are burn marks from the forest fires. Marcus studied the horses more carefully and saw what Lily had noticed. These animals weren't raiders destroying crops for fun. They were survivors seeking safety and healing. That's why they won't leave. Lily continued, pieces of the puzzle falling into place. This canyon has everything they need: water, shelter, and those mineral deposits in the north wall. The horses are using the minerals to heal their burns. The white stallion had moved closer during their conversation, near enough now that Lily could see the intelligence burning in his eyes. He bore scars from the fire, 2 singed patches in his magnificent coat, and a healing cut along his neck. You brought your family here to get better, Lily said to him. You found this place where the earth could help heal their wounds. That's why you fight so hard to stay. You're not just protecting territory, you're protecting a hospital. Understanding the Mustang's true situation changed everything. These weren't destructive pests to be eliminated. They were injured animals seeking the very thing humans needed most: a place to heal and recover from trauma. But convincing the authorities of this truth would require more than just Lily's word. It would require proof that the horses could be reasoned with, that coexistence was possible. The white stallion took another step closer, his massive head lowering until he was eye level with the small girl who had seen past his aggression to his pain. In that moment, a connection formed that would change not just the fate of 200 wild horses, but the entire understanding of what it meant to share the land with its original inhabitants. The gunshot echoed through Red Rock Canyon like thunder, sending every Mustang into a panicked frenzy. Lily screamed as the white stallion reared above her, his hooves striking the air mere inches from her head, while the rest of the herd scattered in terror. "Hold your fire!" Colonel Bradley's voice boomed across the canyon. I said, "Hold your fire," but the damage was done. Hours of careful trust-building had been shattered in an instant by one nervous soldier's trigger finger. The stallion landed hard, his eyes wild with betrayal as he backed away from Lily, snorting and shaking his head. "I'm sorry," Lily called to him, tears streaming down her face. Please don't give up on me. I know you're scared, but we can fix this. Marcus helped her to her feet, checking for injuries while keeping one eye on the agitated horses. The canyon had become a chaos of dust and motion as the mustangs milled about. No longer the calm, organized herd they'd been just moments before. "Who fired that shot?" Colonel Bradley demanded. His face red with anger as he climbed down from the ridge. A young private stepped forward, his hands shaking. "Sorry, sir. Thought I saw the stallion attacking the girl. I was trying to protect her. By destroying 3 hours of progress," the colonel snapped. "That girl was closer to solving this problem than anyone else has been." Lily wiped her eyes and straightened her shoulders. He didn't know she said defending the soldier. He saw what he expected to see. A dangerous wild animal threatening a helpless person. Most people would have seen the same thing. The colonel looked surprised by her response. "You're not angry." "Being angry won't help the horses," Lily replied. "But understanding might." She turned to face the young soldier who had fired the shot. "What's your name?" "Private Wilson, miss." "Tom Wilson." "Tom, have you ever been really scared? So scared that you couldn't think straight?" The private nodded. "Yes, miss. In my first battle I was so frightened I could barely hold my rifle. That's how these horses feel every time they see humans with weapons. They've been hurt before by fire, by people who didn't understand them. When you raise that rifle, you look just like every other threat they've faced." Tom Wilson's face grew pale as he began to understand. "I didn't mean to scare them, miss. I was trying to help." "I know," Lily said gently, "but help looks different depending on where you're standing. From up on that ridge it looked like the stallion was attacking me. But down here I could see he was just trying to protect his family." The conversation was interrupted by a commotion near the canyon's north wall. The white stallion had gathered his herd around the mineral deposits, positioning the mares and foals in the center, while the young stallions formed a protective ring around them. "He's preparing for war," observed Colonel Bradley grimly. "That shot convinced him we're here to hurt his herd. Then we have to convince him otherwise," Lily said with determination. "We have to show him that not all humans are the same. How do you propose to do that? He won't let anyone get close now." Lily studied the defensive formation the horses had taken, noting how the stallion kept himself between his herd and any potential threat. An idea began to form in her mind, risky, but possibly their only chance. "Private Wilson," she said, turning to the young soldier, "would you be willing to help me try something?" Tom Wilson looked nervous, but nodded. "Yes, miss, anything to make up for my mistake. I want you to walk with me toward the herd, but this time no weapons. In fact, I want you to carry something that shows we're here to help, not hurt." Lily limped over to their supply wagon and pulled out a bag of oats and some medical supplies. "Animals understand actions better than words," she explained. "If we approach them with food and medicine instead of guns, maybe they'll see us differently." The walk across the canyon floor felt like the longest journey of Lily's life. Beside her, Private Wilson carried the bag of oats while she held the medical kit. Behind them, every man in the camp watched with held breath. The white stallion stepped forward to meet them, his muscles tense and ready for battle. But this time Lily didn't stop 50 feet away. She kept walking slowly and steadily until she was close enough to see the intelligence burning in his dark eyes. "I know you don't trust us," she said softly, "and I don't blame you. But not all humans are the same, just like not all horses are the same. Some of us want to help." She held up the medical kit, opening it so the stallion could see the bandages and healing salves inside. "Your family is hurt. I can see the burns on their legs, the cuts from running through the forest. Let me help them heal." The stallion studied the medical supplies, then looked at Private Wilson standing quietly beside Lily. The young soldier's hands were empty except for the bag of oats, and his posture showed no aggression. "Tom made a mistake." Lily continued addressing the stallion as if he could understand every word. "He was scared just like you're scared, but he's here now to make it right." Private Wilson seemed to understand what Lily wanted. He slowly knelt and poured some oats onto the ground, then backed away several steps. The gesture was simple but powerful, an offering of food rather than a threat of violence. For a long moment the canyon was completely silent except for the wind whistling through the red rocks. Then, incredibly, the white stallion took a step forward. He sniffed the oats, then looked directly at Lily and Private Wilson. What happened next would be talked about for years afterward. The magnificent stallion lowered his great head and gently touched Lily's outstretched hand with his muzzle. It was a gesture of acceptance, of trust, cautiously offered to someone who had proven herself different from the rest. "Thank you, Lily," whispered, tears flowing freely down her cheeks. "Thank you for giving us another chance." Working slowly and carefully, Lily began to examine the horse's injuries. The burns were worse than she'd first realized. Some of the animals had painful wounds that were clearly infected, but the mineral-rich mud near the canyon walls had natural healing properties, which explained why the herd was so reluctant to leave. "They're not just seeking shelter," Lily called to Colonel Bradley. "This place is actually helping them heal. The minerals in the mud have antiseptic properties. They instinctively found a natural pharmacy." As word of this discovery spread through the camp, the atmosphere began to change. These weren't destructive pests anymore. They were intelligent creatures, seeking medical treatment in the only way they knew how. "What do you propose we do?" Colonel Bradley asked. Lily looked around the canyon, taking in the vast space, the abundant water, and the healing minerals. "What if we made this an official sanctuary, a place where injured wild animals could come to heal the horses, could stay until they're better, and then they could choose to leave or stay?" "A sanctuary?" The colonel looked skeptical. "The territorial government doesn't fund animal hospitals." "Then maybe it's time they started," Lily replied. "These animals were here first. Maybe it's time we learned to share the land instead of just taking it." The idea was revolutionary, creating a place where wild animals had rights, where healing was valued over exploitation. But as Colonel Bradley watched Lily work with the Mustangs, treating their wounds, while Private Wilson helped distribute food, he began to see the possibility. "I'll send a telegram to the territorial governor," he said finally. "No guarantees, but your proposal deserves consideration." As the sun set over Red Rock Canyon, painting the rocks in shades of gold and crimson, Lily sat beside the white stallion and felt a profound sense of hope. They had done more than save 200 horses. They had planted the seed of a new way of thinking about the relationship between humans and the natural world. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time, that uncertainty felt full of promise rather than threat. Blood poured from the gash on Marcus's forehead as he struggled to his feet, the overturned wagon burning behind him, while 3 masked men on horseback circled like vultures. They had ambushed the supply run to Red Rock Canyon, and now Lily was nowhere to be seen. "Where is she?" Marcus shouted, wiping blood from his eyes as he searched the smoke and chaos. Lily, the lead rider, his face hidden behind a black bandana, laughed coldly. "The girl's safe, Brennan, for now, but that depends entirely on you." Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs. 3 days had passed since the territorial governor had approved the Mustang Sanctuary, making Lily something of a celebrity throughout Kansas. But fame had brought enemies as well as friends, and now those enemies had struck. "What do you want?" Marcus demanded, his hand moving instinctively toward his rifle before remembering it had been thrown clear in the wagon crash. "We want you to take that girl and disappear," the rider replied. "Pack up your ranch. Take your little horse Whisperer and get out of Kansas, tonight." "And if I refuse?" The man's laugh was even colder than before. "Then accidents start happening. The girl falls off a horse, gets kicked by a bull, takes a tumble down some stairs." "You understand what I'm saying?" Marcus understood perfectly. These weren't just threats, they were promises of violence against an innocent child. But who was behind this? Who had enough to lose from Lily's success that they would resort to kidnapping and intimidation? "I need proof she's alive," Marcus said, fighting to keep his voice steady. The second rider reached into his saddlebag and pulled out Lily's cloth doll, the one possession she never went anywhere without. The sight of Rosie's familiar stitched face hit Marcus like a physical blow. "She's got until tomorrow night to say goodbye to her precious horses," the leader said. After that, we stopped being patient. The 3 men spurred their horses and disappeared into the maze of canyons surrounding the sanctuary, leaving Marcus alone with his burning wagon and growing desperation. He had to find Lily, but he also had to be smart about it. These men had planned this carefully, and walking into their trap wouldn't help anyone. Back at the sanctuary, Colonel Bradley listened grimly as Marcus reported the attack. The military man's weathered face grew darker with each detail. "This isn't random," Bradley said. "Someone with money and influence is behind this. The question is who?" "Does it matter?" Marcus asked impatiently. "They have Lily. We need to find her. It matters because we need to know what we're up against. And I think I might have an idea." Bradley pulled out a stack of telegrams from his desk. "These arrived this morning. Complaints from livestock companies, protests from cattle barons, even a formal letter from the Territorial Ranching Association. Seems your girl's success with the Mustangs has some people worried." Marcus scanned the messages, seeing the same theme repeated over and over. Lily's methods were unnatural. Her sanctuary was setting a dangerous precedent. and her influence was undermining established agricultural practices. They're afraid, Marcus realized. They're afraid that if people see a better way to deal with animals, they'll start questioning the old ways. Exactly. And scared men with money do desperate things. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of an unexpected visitor. Tom Wilson, the young private who had accidentally triggered the Mustang crisis, came running into the camp with news that made Marcus's blood run cold. "Sir, I was on patrol near Devil's Ridge when I heard voices echoing from the old copper mine. Sounded like someone calling for help. Devil's Ridge was a treacherous area of abandoned mines and unstable rock formations. If Lily was being held there, rescue would be extremely dangerous, which was probably exactly what her captors were counting on." "How many men did you see?" Bradley asked. "Couldn't tell for sure, sir, but I counted at least 4 horses tethered near the mine entrance." Marcus was already moving toward his horse before Wilson finished speaking. "I'm going after her. Not alone." "You're not," Bradley said firmly. "This is military business now. We'll take a full squad." "A squad will spook them," Marcus argued. "They'll hurt her or run deeper into the mines where we'll never find them, and one man alone will get himself killed and leave that girl orphaned." Bradley shot back. "We do this smart or we don't do it at all." The debate was settled by another interruption, this time from an even more surprising source. The white stallion from the Mustang herd had approached the camp's perimeter, something he had never done before. The magnificent horse stood at the edge of the firelight, his head held high and his dark eyes fixed on Marcus. "He knows something's wrong," Wilson observed in amazement. "Look at how he's acting." The stallion took several steps closer, then stopped and looked back toward the canyon entrance. His message was clear. He wanted them to follow. "Animals know things we don't," Marcus said, remembering Lily's words. "Maybe he can help us find her." Against all military protocol and common sense, Colonel Bradley agreed to let the stallion guide them. A small rescue party consisting of Marcus, Wilson, and 2 other soldiers followed the white horse through the darkness toward Devil's Ridge. The stallion moved with purpose, leading them along hidden trails that avoided the main approaches to the mining area. His knowledge of the terrain was extraordinary, and Marcus began to understand that the Mustangs had been watching human activity in these canyons for generations. As they drew closer to the abandoned mine, the stallion became more cautious. He stopped frequently to listen and test the air with his sensitive nostrils. When they were within a quarter-mile of the mine entrance, he stopped completely and pawed the ground in agitation. "He won't go any further," Wilson whispered. "Too dangerous." Marcus dismounted and approached the stallion, placing a gentle hand on the animal's neck. "Thank you," he said softly. "You brought us this far. Now it's up to us." The stallion touched Marcus's shoulder with his muzzle, a gesture of trust and encouragement that reminded him powerfully of Lily's gift for communicating across species. The final approach to the mine had to be made on foot. Marcus and the soldiers crept through the rocks and scrub brush, using every shadow for cover. When they finally had a clear view of the mine entrance, Marcus felt his heart sink. The kidnappers had chosen their position well. The mine entrance was in a natural bowl surrounded by steep cliffs, with only one narrow path leading in or out. 3 men with rifles stood guard while a 4th kept watch from a high ledge. Getting close enough to attempt a rescue would be nearly impossible without being seen. But then Marcus heard something that made his pulse quicken. A voice echoing from deep within the mine shaft. Lily was calling out not in fear or desperation, but in the same calm, soothing tone she used with frightened animals. "It's all right." Her voice drifted on the night air. "I know you're scared, but I'm not going to hurt you. You don't have to do this." She was talking to her captors the same way she talked to wounded horses, trying to calm their fears and build trust even in the midst of her own terror. The realization filled Marcus with both pride and heartbreak. His brave, compassionate girl was trying to heal the very people who had taken her. But it also gave him an idea. If Lily could get her captors to trust her, maybe she could create an opportunity for rescue from the inside. All he had to do was get close enough to signal her without alerting the guards. The plan was risky and required perfect timing, but it was their best chance. As Marcus began his careful approach through the rocks, he carried with him not just weapons and rope, but something far more powerful. The faith that love and courage could overcome even the darkest intentions. The rescue of Lily May was about to begin, and failure was not an option. Inside the mineshaft, Lily sat in complete darkness, her hands tied behind her back while her captors argued in harsh whispers about what to do next. She had been underground for hours, but instead of giving in to fear, she was doing something that would have amazed Marcus. She was studying her kidnappers like they were frightened animals that needed healing. "This wasn't supposed to take so long," muttered Jake, the youngest of the four men. "We were just supposed to scare them off, not hold a kid hostage in a mine." "Shut up," hissed the leader, a man Lily had heard them call Hayes. "You knew what this job involved when you took the money. I thought it involved burning down an empty barn or stealing some horses. I didn't sign up for kidnapping a little girl." Lily could hear the conflict in Jake's voice, the way his words trembled with doubt and guilt. He reminded her of a horse that had been forced to do something against its nature, angry and dangerous, but not truly evil. "You're scared," she said softly, her voice cutting through their argument like a gentle blade. The men fell silent, surprised that their prisoner was speaking. "What did you say?" Hayes demanded. "You're scared," Lily repeated. "All of you. You're doing something you know is wrong because someone powerful told you to, and now you're trapped just like I am. Nobody asked for your opinion, girl," snarled Hayes, but Lily could hear the uncertainty beneath his bluster. "Jake," she continued, focusing on the one who seemed most conflicted. "You have children, don't you? I can hear it in your voice when you talk about me. You keep thinking about how your own kids would feel if someone took them." There was a sharp intake of breath from Jake's direction. "How did you—" "Because you're a good man doing a bad thing," Lily said simply. "And good men suffer when they act against their nature." I said, "Shut up." Hayes's voice echoed off the mine walls, but there was desperation in his anger now. Lily pressed on, using every skill she'd learned from working with frightened animals. "What did they promise you? Moneyland? Whatever it was it worth this feeling you have in your stomach right now? This shame that's eating at you from the inside?" Above ground, Marcus was making his way through the rocks with agonizing slowness. Every step had to be carefully placed to avoid loose stones that might alert the guards. Behind him, Colonel Bradley and the soldiers waited for his signal, ready to move when the time was right. As he drew closer to the mine entrance, Marcus could hear Lily's voice more clearly. What he heard made him stop in amazement. She wasn't pleading or crying. She was doing exactly what she did with troubled horses. She was trying to heal her captor's fear and guilt. "You're just like the Mustangs," Lily was saying to someone in the darkness below. "You're running scared, striking out at anyone who gets close because you think the whole world is against you. But it doesn't have to be that way. You don't know anything about our world," Hayes replied. But his voice had lost some of its venom. "I know what it's like to be thrown away," Lily said. "I know what it's like to have people look at you and see only what's wrong, what's broken, what doesn't fit their idea of normal. But I also know what it's like to find someone who sees your worth instead of your flaws." Marcus felt tears stinging his eyes as he listened to his brave daughter turn her own pain into a tool for healing others. "The man who adopted me," Lily continued. "He could have chosen any child at that auction. Strong boys who could work the ranch, pretty girls who would make good wives someday. But he chose me, the one nobody wanted, the one with the twisted leg and no future. Why?" This was Jake's voice, thick with emotion. "Because he understood that worth isn't about what you can do for other people. It's about who you are inside. And you're not killers, any of you. You're just men who got backed into a corner and couldn't see another way out." There was a long silence in the mine shaft. Marcus used the moment to signal Colonel Bradley, then began his descent toward the mine entrance. One of the guards was walking away from his post, probably to check on the conversation below. "What are you suggesting?" Hayes asked finally. "Let me go," Lily said simply. "Walk away from whoever hired you and find a better path. You still have time to choose who you want to be." "You think it's that easy?" Hayes laughed bitterly. "You think we can just walk away from William Hayes and the Territorial Ranching Association? They own half the territory. They could destroy us." Marcus's blood ran cold. William Hayes, the same man who had visited his ranch weeks ago to voice concerns about Lily. He was the one behind this kidnapping, using his wealth and influence to eliminate a threat to his way of doing business. "So you'll destroy an innocent child instead?" Lily asked. "How does that make you better than the people you're afraid of?" Inside the mine, something fundamental was shifting. Jake had moved closer to Lily, his conscience finally overwhelming his fear. "Hayes, this is wrong. Look at her. She's just a little girl trying to help animals. We can't do anything else." Hayes exploded. "Don't you understand? If word gets out about what she can do, if more people start thinking animals deserve better treatment, our whole way of life is finished. The cattle business, the horse breaking, all of it. She's a threat to everything we've built. Then maybe what we've built needs to change," Jake said quietly. The words hung in the darkness like a revelation. Here, in the depths of an abandoned mine, a man was choosing to evolve rather than destroy. He was proving that Lily's gift wasn't just about communicating with animals. It was about awakening the better angels of human nature. Marcus had reached the mine entrance. The remaining guards were distracted by the argument echoing from below, giving him the opening he needed. But as he prepared to signal the rescue attempt, he heard footsteps on the path behind him. William Hayes himself was approaching, flanked by 2 more armed men. The real power behind the kidnapping had come to ensure that his orders were carried out regardless of his hired men's developing consciences. Enough talking. Hayes called down into the mine. "Kill the girl, and let's be done with this." The words echoed through the canyon like a death sentence, galvanizing everyone into action. Marcus burst from his hiding place just as Colonel Bradley's soldiers opened fire on the guards. Inside the mine, Jake was shouting at Hayes to stop, while Lily's voice rose above the chaos, still trying to reach the humanity in her captors. The final confrontation had begun, and the fate of everything Marcus and Lily had built together hung in the balance. But deep in the darkness of the mine shaft, something remarkable was happening. A man named Jake was proving that even in the worst circumstances, people could choose to be better than their fears. The question was whether that choice would come in time to save an extraordinary little girl who had spent her entire rescue attempt trying to save the very people who had taken her.